What's up, party people? It's me, K-Dog, and here we are with another big fat opinion. Now, I'm not gonna beat around the bush today. You all saw the thumbnail and the title. You know what we're getting into. I guess what I want to say before we get into this idea is that I love Into the Spider-Verse. Some of you may not have seen my top 10 video 2 weeks ago where I literally placed it as my favorite animated film of the year and my 7th favorite film of 2018. I think it is one of the best animated films of the last decade, actually, just because of the amount of boundaries it pushes with its actual animation. It leaves no room for error when it comes to visuals, making sure every second of screen time is full of something exciting to look at. What I love is that I think because of Spider-Verse and the success it's received both critically and financially, we're hopefully going to be seeing a lot more exciting animation in the industry rather than just more animated films with some hair that looks so real. Wow, look at how accurate that hair looks. Oh my god, it's like it's right in front of me. But anyways, everyone keeps talking about how amazing this movie is and how it's a masterpiece and it's flawless. But fellas, can we please address the fact that this film is so far from perfect? I even mentioned that in my top 10 video where I do have some flaws with it that when looking back are pretty big flaws. If you're wondering what said flaws were, I'm talking about the music. I have not talked about music in film as much on this channel as I feel like I should. I say that because music is a huge part in the personality of said film. Imagine if Star Wars sounded like Mary Poppins and Mary Poppins sounded like Star Wars. They would be completely different movies. And the thing about music is that it is also very fragile and easy to mess up. And I think Spider-Verse, sadly, is a prime example of this in my opinion. When I talk about the music in Spider-Verse, I'm not necessarily talking about all of it. There are certain sections in the film, primarily in the first act, that consist of a lot of old school East Coast 90s hip hop. And I think that that kind of music matches perfectly with this film, being that there's some graffiti, it takes place in Brooklyn, and this fun and unpredictable yet structured and repetitive style of music works incredibly well with Spider-Man as a character because, you know, that's exactly what he is. It provided the score of the film with a theme. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about Black Panther. Now, I think Spider-Verse is much better than Black Panther, but when it comes to music, Black Panther, in my opinion, did it really well. Black Panther incorporated the typical Marvel-like orchestra score, but with hi-hats and other elements to make it unique to Black Panther. And this film did this idea well by staying consistent with it throughout the entirety of the film. From beginning to end, you hear the same type of music. It feels complete. Spider-Verse interrupted its consistent theme, in this case being 90s turntable-style music, by including songs that feel like they were built to be heard on the radio in 2018. Songs like Sunflower, Hide, Way Up, they all feel so separate from the world of this film. Now, let me be clear, what I'm saying has nothing to do with my opinions on these songs. I'm not afraid that people are going to be offended that I don't like these songs, but I can see a lot of people thinking that I'm docking the movie for a type of music that isn't my thing. Do I like the music? It's not bad, some of it's okay, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean it's not the worst part of the film for me. Basically, here's the deal. Look back at films like Cheaper by the Dozen, a movie that, in my opinion, feels super dated. It's not because of the cinematography or the writing or Steve Martin. It's because one minute you'll be enjoying the movie, and the next minute you're listening to "I'm just a kid and my life is a nightmare," an insanely 2003 lyric coming from a very 2003 song. Is it a bad song? Nah, dog, that shit slaps. But when I listen to that, I can't help but think, wow, this movie is 2003 as fuck. The fact that the film is mixed with this normal-ass movie music and this 2003 Sum 41 type stuff, it's why this film feels sort of dated. Then you look at films like School of Rock, on the other hand, that does use a good amount of outdated music but feels timeless because it embraces that style and stays consistent with it. And that's exactly why I think films like Black Panther are going to be enjoyable and remain timeless for years to come, because the soundtrack music is able to blend with the score in a consistent manner. With Spider-Verse, you'll go from a really awesome song with turntable scratches that sounds like something from the Beastie Boys, and the next moment you're in some song by Post Malone that has a really mediocre hook. It just doesn't mix that well. Now you could argue, Karsten, Miles is a teenager. Teenagers listen to this type of music. It makes sense for him to be singing that. And while I do agree, that's a fair argument, here's the deal. In that case, I wish the score for the actual film incorporated more modern sounds like you hear in the soundtrack, because then at least things would be sort of consistent, but I understand that would be a problem because that sound doesn't necessarily mix well with the environment and style of the film as neatly as the turntable style does. So what I'm saying is, yeah, there's no problem that Miles is a teenager who listens to modern music, but there was an easy fix. If the people behind the film actually took the time to just do a little bit of digging, they would know that there are tons of artists out there making music that sounds modern, yet fits the score of the film. Groups like Run the Jewels being a prime example. But I understand, including artists like Post Malone and Jaden Smith and X, it helps get the film out there to more people. So I guess with all that being said, including these poppy trap songs that don't really fit with the film was kind of inevitable. And to be honest, maybe it's a good thing, assuming they did help the film reach a good amount of success. But here's what I will say. Given the critical acclaim and financial success, this film is without a doubt getting a sequel of some sort. I hope. It has an audience, people love it, there will not be a problem getting people to the theater. So this is my message to Sony, Marvel, whoever the fuck is in charge. Spider-Verse was almost a flawless masterpiece to me. It took risks with its animation that paid off in huge ways, and it makes me so happy to see big budget films doing that nowadays. So all I ask of you, now that you have a guaranteed audience and you don't need big stars to get to the theater, just take some risks with your music. Go with what fits with the film, not something that just feels like a forced cash grab that'll play well on the radio. Because in 20 years, I really don't want something as groundbreaking and important to the animation industry as Spider-Verse to be labeled as dated. I'm just a kid and my life is a nightmare. I'm just a kid and my life is a nightmare. I'm just a kid and my life is a nightmare. I'm just a kid, I'm just a kid and my life is a nightmare. I'm just a kid and my life is a nightmare. Oh, I'm just a kid and my